It was an ordinary Saturday afternoon when 6-year-old Mason disappeared without a trace. One minute, he was in the backyard kicking around a soccer ball, and the next gone. No sound, no struggle, no sign of where he went. His parents, Dave and Melissa, searched the entire neighborhood within minutes, calling his name until their voices broke. The police were called immediately, and what followed was a massive search effort that gripped their small town for weeks. Helicopters scanned the woods, dogs traced the scent to the edge of the yard, and neighbors opened their homes, sheds, and garages hoping, praying, but finding nothing. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, hope began to fade. Rumors swirled, theories came and went, but the truth remained locked away. The case eventually went cold. Dave, though, never stopped looking. Every birthday, every holiday, he left Mason's room untouched, clinging to the belief that one day anything would lead him to his son. Then, 8 years later, a new neighbor moved in just 2 houses down. One morning, while helping the man fix a broken fence, Dave noticed something strange near the dog kennel behind the house. The ground looked disturbed, like it had been dug up and filled again. Curiosity turned into suspicion, and when Dave quietly lifted the kennel's wooden platform, what he saw underneath made his blood run cold. It was something he'd never expected, and yet, somehow, deep down, always feared. The truth was about to come out. It was closer than anyone imagined. Dave's hands trembled as he stared down at the hollow space beneath the kennel. At first, it looked like just dirt and concrete, but then he spotted something else, a piece of fabric, worn and faded, sticking out from the edge. It was red and gray, the exact color of the Spider-Man hoodie Mason was wearing the day he vanished. His heart pounded. He backed away, trying to steady his breathing, unsure if he was about to uncover a clue or relive a nightmare. He didn't want to jump to conclusions, but everything in him screamed that this meant something. He didn't tell the new neighbor right away. Instead, that night, he went back to the house and sat in Mason's room, remembering the quiet little boy who loved comic books and hated bedtime. Melissa still left a nightlight on for him, even though the room had been untouched for years. They had both clung to hope, but time had worn them down. They never sold the house, never moved, just waited. Dave called the detective who had worked the case back then, a man named Ruiz, who had since retired but answered right away when he saw the caller ID. "I think I found something," Dave said, voice shaking. Ruiz agreed to meet the next morning, but even over the phone, Dave could hear the hesitation. After 8 years, there had been too many false leads. Still, Ruiz said he'd come. What neither of them knew was just how much darker the truth really was. Detective Ruiz arrived just after sunrise. The same tired crease still across his brow, though his badge now hung from his rearview mirror instead of his belt. He followed Dave through the yard, past the familiar fence line, to the back corner where the neighbor's dog kennel stood. Dave knelt and pulled aside the wooden platform again. Ruiz crouched beside him, silent for a long time, eyes fixed on the fragment of red fabric peeking through the dirt. Ruiz carefully removed it with gloved hands, holding it up to the morning light. It was dirty, frayed, but unmistakably a child's hoodie, just like the one Mason had worn. His face tightened. "We need to get a team out here," he said quietly. Meanwhile, the new neighbor, Tom, friendly, quiet, mid-40s, stood watching. From his porch, he'd moved in just 2 months ago, said he worked remotely, kept to himself. No criminal record, no red flags. But the discovery under his kennel couldn't be ignored. While they waited for the forensic team, Dave and Ruiz walked the edge of the property. Ruiz reminded Dave of an old lead they never could track, a tip from a neighbor back in the early days about a strange vehicle parked on the street the day Mason went missing. The description didn't match Tom's car now, but what if he wasn't the original suspect? What if someone else had used that space years before? The land hadn't always belonged to Tom. That part of the story was still hidden, just like Mason had been. The forensic team arrived by mid-morning, quietly taping off the yard while neighbors peeked from behind curtains. News hadn't spread yet, but it wouldn't take long. Dave stood just outside the perimeter, arms crossed. Tightly eyes locked on the kennel, as if staring hard enough might unlock the past. Ruiz paced nearby, speaking in hushed tones with the technicians, occasionally glancing back at Tom, who now looked visibly nervous. One of the techs called them over. They had started digging beneath the kennel and uncovered more fragments of what looked like toys, old candy wrappers, even a small flashlight with faded stickers on it. Dave recognized the stickers instantly. They were Mason's. His legs nearly gave out, and Ruiz caught him by the arm, steadying him. "It's something, Dave. We're close." But close wasn't enough. Not yet. Ruiz pulled up old property records and discovered something strange. The lot where Tom's house now stood had been vacant for years after the previous owner passed away around the same. Tom Mason disappeared. But for nearly a year before that, it had been rented out. The renter? A man named Gregory Hale. The name didn't ring any bells at first, but when Ruiz checked old case files, it popped up in a background report. Buried in an old witness, interview someone who once did repair work around the neighborhood. Ruiz's gut tightened. If Gregory had access to the yard all those years ago, then this went deeper than they ever thought. And someone else might have known all along. The name, Gregory Hale, sent a chill through Dave and Ruiz. But the twist came when they dug deeper into public records. Gregory Hale had died in a car accident nearly 10 years ago, long before Tom ever set foot on the block. Yet the evidence under the Kennel Mason stickers, his hoodie fragment, could only have been placed there while Hay was alive. How could that be? Ruiz ran a cross-check on Tom's background and discovered something astonishing. Tom's social security number had originally belonged to Gregory Hale. The man calling himself Tom Reynolds had assumed Hale's identity just months before Mason vanished. His gentle greeting on moving day was a carefully crafted facade. The neighbor they'd befriended was the very person they should have feared. Dave reeled as Ruiz explained. Every friendly wave, every quiet hello across the fence had been part of Tom's plan to blend in, keep an eye on their family, and ensure no one suspected a thing. All those years of mowing the lawn, checking on the dog kennel, fixing the fence, it was surveillance. Meanwhile, a new discovery in the yard changed everything again. Hidden beneath a layer of soil was an old toy truck, bright blue, chipped paint, Mason's name scrawled on the bottom. The forensic team confirmed it had been there since the day of his disappearance. That meant Tom Gregory had placed it there when he still lived under his real name. Now, the question was no longer who buried those clues, but why he'd left them behind. And more terrifyingly, what other secrets lay hidden in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered. With the truth closing in, authorities moved quickly. Ruiz got a warrant to search Tom's house from top to bottom. Officers arrived before sunset, while Tom sat stone-faced on his porch, pretending to sip coffee as if nothing was wrong. But the calm didn't last. Inside, in the basement behind a locked panel in the wall, they made the discovery that ended years of unanswered questions, an old storage space, long sealed off. Inside were Mason's belongings, drawings, books, and a small blanket his mom had sewn with his initials. And tucked in the corner, sealed in a weathered plastic box, were dozens of VHS tapes, surveillance, recordings of Mason playing in his own backyard, taken from a hidden angle. Across the fence from this very house, as investigators dug further, they learned the truth. Gregory Hale had staged his own death using false documents, vanishing after years of working in construction under different names. When Mason went missing, Hale posing as Tom had already been watching the neighborhood for months. But here was the final twist. A fingerprint match on one of the VHS tapes didn't belong to Tom. It belonged to someone else. Someone living just 3 streets over. Gregory hadn't acted alone. The man who everyone believed was just a quiet handyman down the block had been part of the plan. And as police closed in on him, one last question burned in Dave's mind. If Hale was only part of it, where was Mason now? Because this story, it seemed, wasn't over yet. In the weeks that followed, the case unraveled piece by piece. Gregory Hale, living under the name Tom Reynolds, had worked alongside another man, Gary, a local handyman who often helped families with odd jobs. Gary had gone unnoticed all these years, just another face in the neighborhood. But after his arrest, he finally broke under pressure. He admitted everything. Mason hadn't been taken for money or revenge. It had been something far more disturbing. Gregory had planned to raise the boy in isolation, convinced he could provide a better life than the one Mason had. When the police asked where Mason was now, Gary led them to a cabin deep in the woods, 2 states away. There, after 8 long years, they found him. Mason, now 14, sat on the steps of the small wooden cabin, quiet and wary as the officers approached.